Good morning, viewers. Welcome to NOA River State Dialogue. NOA means National Orientation Agency, and on this forum, we communicate government policies, programs, and activities to the people and entertain feedback and support for government policies, programs, and activities. I am Mrs. Esanjumi Richard Halliday, your anchor on this program. Recall that last week Friday, we started a discussion on social media and national development, narrowing it down to fake news, to the spread of fake news. We learned that fake news can incite violence, fake news has caused conflict in communities, in societies, has led to war, and has retarded national development. Today, we shall be talking on the same topic, but narrowing it down to hate speech. And I have with me here in the studio to take on this topic today, Mrs. Margaret Banigo. She's an assistant director and NOA liaison officer at the River State House of Assembly. You're welcome, ma'am.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome to the program.
I also have here with me Mr. Tam Sorubo. He is the Community Orientation and Mobilization Officer in charge of NOA office, Thai local government area.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Now, I'd like to start with you, Mr. Tam Sorubo. What is hate speech?
Oh, well, there are different opinions about hate speeches, but hate speech generally, is a negative comment. A comment that is eliciting negative response about a thing, about a person, about an ethnic group, about sex, about so many different things. Everything is encompassed in hate speech because hate speech is targeted at bringing negative responses concerning a thing. You understand? If somebody says negative things about you, the person's attitude will change about you. They might not want to communicate with you and all that. So hate speech is generally a prejudiced statement that is targeted at bringing down the repute of either a person, a group of persons, a community, an ethnic group, or something like that. So we are saying that hate speech is negative in its entirety.
Okay, so how is it spread?
Well, we spread there are different avenues. It might be spread in the market, it might be person-to-person contact, it might be in a political gathering, even on radio. If you notice that most of these call-in programs on radio, you discover that when people call in, they tend to say derogatory things about the person, about the subject matter. And we want to commend the radio producers and the presenters for flagging down those kind of speeches, because they're inflammatory, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so now Mrs. Banigo, what are the effects of hate speech in our society today?
Hate speech has enormous negative effects in our society. Hate speech can deter development.
Okay.
Hate speech, because it's offensive, it creates fear, it creates panic, it creates anger. And when someone is angry, a bitter person, it creates acrimony and rancor in society. And no meaningful development can take place in the society or atmosphere of rancor and conflict.
Okay. Now, we know that in our constitution we have fundamental human rights. And one of them is the freedom of expression.
Right.
Okay, freedom of expression. Now we're talking about hate speech. We're saying hate speech is negative. Right? The person is expressing himself. So will you say that you are infringing on the right of that person for us to say stop hate speech?
Not exactly. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as enshrined, gives you the right to freedom of expression.
Okay.
Yes. And at the same time, also gives you right to freedom of dignity, right to dignity. And so, if as a person you want to pass a message or make a statement or a comment, you should consider the dignity of the other person.
Okay.
Where your right starts is where the other person owns. Where your right end is where the other person's going starts.
Yeah.
And so you must learn to draw a line
Okay.
when you're making a point.
Okay.
The freedom of expression, as enshrined in the Federal Republic of Nigeria Constitution, does not allow you to use offensive words or language against the other person.
Yes.
You must guide your utterances.
Yeah.
You can make your points without consulting somebody.
Yeah. So now we talked about, last week I said we talked about fake news, and today we're talking about hate speech. Can you marry these two things together? How can do they go together? Does one lead to the other? Can we marry the two?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think they are like Siamese twins, you understand? Where one follows the other one just like that. When we're talking about fake news, it talks about news that is not true concerning any particular matter. And when you're talking about hate speech, you're talking about derogatory comments about somebody. And both of them are very negative to national development because it creates mistrust, it creates disunity, it creates crisis. Both of them create crisis as a matter of fact. Because when you put fake news, anybody who believes that fake news will react on that fake news.
Okay.
You understand? When there's hate speech, anybody who listens to that speech, without finding out the facts, will react to that fake news and the hate speech. So it might make people not to work together. These people, they say, this is the way they are. Don't trust them. The next person won't trust them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you didn't get to the nitty-gritty of whatever you were saying.
Transpired before that time.
Before this time.
Okay.
So they work together and to bring down. Even the psyche of the person is brought down. The individual, the group, there's negative attitudes.
Okay. Now, viewers, you can start sending in your questions, comments, and suggestions. I think I have one already from Mrs. Rosemary Abehat. She says hate speech is toxic and can slow down national development. Do you agree?
Yes, it's very.
So how can it?
It's very, very toxic and can affect national development.
Okay.
When you use words like calling somebody a vulture, the impact. It's hurts the person's emotion. Okay. It's capable of creating bitterness and hatred, and someone that has bitterness may not be able to function well. It affects the mental health of the person.
Yeah. Can you also add to that?
Yes, it also causes depression. There's what they call cyberbullying. You understand?
Okay.
So that when you go on the social network, on the social media, you discover that there are some comments there are some people that start doing negative comments against you. You understand? It might lead to depression. Abusing you, abusive words and all that. And it brings down your psyche as a person. You understand? You start thinking negative thoughts, and sometimes it even leads to suicide. From what we have seen, yes, you understand?
Okay.
Very toxic.
Okay, we have another comment coming from Veda Chugada, and I'm just going to take in some of the comments again. He's saying the government has a key role to play in curbing hate speech. When the government is just, fair, and seen to be so, especially in the allocation of resources and appointment into public offices. Do you agree with that?
Exactly. Because part of the problem or part of the issue that gives rise to hate speech is unkept promises, unmet expectations of people. For instance, during the electionary campaign, they make a lot of promises to the people, and if those promises are not kept, it will cause a feeling of aggression in people, and people may want to begin to use hate speech against the government or individual or organization or persons. So I quite agree with that.
Okay, what about you?
In addition to that, there's a social justice system which says that everybody has a right, for development. However, in reaction to government, it is advised that if you're giving any criticisms, you do it constructively. You don't need to use abusive words, or you don't need to use disruptive words. You understand? If you say the government is not doing like this, it's not doing properly in this direction, what is your suggestion in making it better? Instead of making abusive words and all that. You understand? So that if you make your contributions and they have a listening government, they might put those your contributions into work, and you see the difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, like we should
Constructive criticism,
okay.
not hate speech.
Not hate
based.
speech, yeah. Okay, we have also from Mrs. Abehat, hate speech is also dehumanizing. We talked about that. Hate speech is dehumanizing and demonic and should be totally avoided because it brings down the, you are infringing on the human dignity of a person when you make those kind of derogatory, and discriminatory comments, maybe targeted at a particular person like you have said, or a group of persons maybe because of their race and their religion. I think we should shun it. It's demonic. Well, we also have from Bibiba Princewill. She said, "Good morning, NOA Rivers. Thanks for this topic. It is the trend. Yes, hate speech is trending and it's spreading like wildfire, the same as fake news. It's trending because of social media. It is spreading so fast." He says, "And if it is not checked, it can cause crisis, which will in turn retard national development." You also mentioned that.
Exactly. If it is not checked, it can cause disunity.
Okay.
It can cause disunity. So it should be avoided. It shouldn't be used. Rather, we should use words to promote unity and cohesion in society. We should avoid hate speech in its entirety.
Okay, we have from Mr. Bekimbo Williams. You wanted to say something?
No.
Okay, we have from Mr. Bekimbo Williams. He says, "Hate actions are the procateur of hate speeches. End impunity, corruption, and suppression in Nigeria if you must end hate speech." Yeah, he's saying that hate actions. People can also. I think hate speech can also be spread or in our behavior. Somebody can behave in a hateful way towards another person. I think that's what the sender of this comment is trying to say.
In response to that, maybe most of the hate speeches are a result of fake news that people have heard about something, about a person, about an ethnic group, and all that. So when you listen to fake news, eventually it ends up in hate speech against that same person or against another person. So when you're eschewing hate speech, you should also eschew fake news. Because when you listen to fake news that has not been authenticated, news that has not been verified, and you make a decision about it, it leads to the hate speech against that person too. So that if we say no to both of them, I think Nigeria will be a better place.
Yeah. And he also said we should end impunity, corruption, and suppression in Nigeria. I think somebody had commented, about that these are the kind of things that can lead to hate speech, and crisis. He said if we must end hate speech. A word filthy spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver. Thank you, Mr. Bekimbo Williams. And we have from Mr. Taylor Harry. He says, while social media platform gives voice to the voiceless, we should not leverage on this advantage to promote inciting, derogatory, offensive, and outright misleading messages on them. Do you agree?
Yes.
That's what we've been talking about.
That is what I mentioned earlier. That instead of using it negatively, we should use it to promote unity and national cohesion.
You want to be heard. Be heard positively. Be positive. You don't have a voice. Social media, a lot of people can access social media, different platforms.
Cheaply.
Yeah, cheaply. And then you are able to, say what is in your mind. You can use that platform to advise government. What do you want the government to do for you? Rather than using it as a way of spreading, inciting news, derogatory news about government, about people. And it says that we should shun remarks and behavior that promotes hate, rancor, and acrimony in our communities. You mentioned that.
Yes.
And we also have so many coming in. Let everyone fight this menace by saying no to hate speech. And that is the call of NOA. No to hate speech. We also have from Blessing Jogo. She says, a French novelist, Victor Hugo, said, where a citizen's right ends is where the others start. However, we should criticize constructively.
That's what we're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, we said it. Constructive criticism. Where your own right ends is where the other person's right begins. So let's note that. Okay, we have from Mr. Briggs Aroleye. He says, curbing hate speech is the responsibility of all and sundry. Therefore, all hands must be on deck in fighting this ugly and social menace called hate speech and fake news. And he says, well done to NOA Rivers State. You know, all hands has to be on deck.
Definitely.
You know, and like you mentioned, you know, we have offices in each of the local government areas in Nigeria. You know, so what has NOA done?
Well, NOA is still on the field. Like I said, we have offices in the 774 local governments. Our community orientation and mobilization officers, of which I am one, have been on the field trying to tell people to eschew hate speech because we all have dignity of as human beings, yes. And we should respect the other person. If you're criticizing him, criticize him constructively. If you're angry about something, say it once and forget about it, so that you people can mend fences and carry on with life. Employ dialogue. But on the field, actually, we are doing so many things. We are going around the communities, employing local language, and even our lingua franca, the pidgin English, to spread this message. Even this platform is part of NOA's activities to spread this message of stopping hate speech.
Okay, let me take on some more comments before we go on. We have from Bibiba Prince Will. She says, hate speech undermines national unity and peaceful coexistence. How?
How? It does undermine national unity and peaceful coexistence.
Okay.
A country or a nation or a society with crisis cannot do much.
Yeah, I agree.
Movement will be stopped, restriction here and there, and that will affect goods and services, movement of goods and services. Shops will be closed. Just take, for instance, recently what happened when during the protests. Governments imposed a curfew. Movement of goods from neighboring states were not coming in, and prices of goods started falling.
Yes.
So it affected the economy. So it has a negative impact. It has a negative impact on national development, and so we must discourage hate speech.
Okay. No, I have also from Leka Mejuru. She says, to curb hate speech, there should be even distribution of the nation's resources. Do you think that is one of the reasons people?
Yes, the perceived injustice is part of what might cause it, but we should be aware that the resources available for government for distribution are quite scarce. They are not as much as we wanted it to be, but in their wisdom, government is trying as much as possible to distribute evenly to all concerned. And if you feel that your side has not been represented, I think we all have representatives in the National Assembly and all that, whom we can pass through to make sure that our places are being considered for distribution of resources. So we can constructively meet your House of Reps members and tell them to push it into law so that your place is recognized instead of engaging in hate speech, which might be very deliberately. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know, instead of using foul language, look, my place has not been represented, we have not had water, we have not had road, we have not go through the appropriate channels, and I'm sure the distribution of resources will be even.
Okay. Now we have social media users. You are a social media user, I'm a social media user. And when we come in contact with hate speech on any of our platforms, on any platform, we all have contacts on the different platforms. On Facebook, we have contact, Instagram, and all that. What should be your response?
Yeah, the social media platform created for us to interact or engage in social engagement on the social media, the information. When you come across hate speech,
Okay.
I think what you do is you should flag it down.
Okay.
Don't share such messages. Don't spread it.
Okay.
Don't tweet it. Don't retweet it.
Okay.
That's one of the steps that should be taken.
Yeah.
Flag it down. And you can inbox the person.
Yeah.
If somebody sends you such message and you find out that that message is contain hate speech in it, You can inbox the person politely,
Okay.
positively,
Mm-hmm.
and just make your point according to order.
Okay. Okay. We have more comments coming in, so let's try to take all the comments this morning. We have from Prince Will again. Social media is a welcome development with numerous advantages. We talked about it. We talked about it last week. But the use of it to spread fake news and hate speech is the atomic bomb that can put a country on fire. Yes, it's like an atomic bomb. We are because somebody can just sit in his house and just construct something because he's biased about a particular person or a particular group, and just construct something and put it on social media, and then it spreads.
You might discover that even the people that do those kind of things, they are not even around the locality of what they are saying.
Yeah.
They might be far away, so that the effects of these things do not even touch them, putting other people at risk.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay. So we have more coming in from Mr. Williams. He says people should have the fear of God and do the right thing by being patriotic and take responsibility. Yes. Let not an evil speaker be established in the earth. Thank you, Mr. Becky, for Williams. And he's also saying punitive measures is required to end hate speech. You agree?
Yes. Well, if somebody, like I said, we need the courts to be proactive in this matter, especially in cases of this hate speech, because most of them are cases of libel, as a matter of fact. So if you issue an hate speech or hate statement against somebody, and the person has the right to take you to court.
Okay.
You understand? And if the courts will judge properly and find you liable, you go to jail or you pay a fine. So I think yes. Okay. I agree with that.
Okay. So we have more coming in. We have from Mr. Young Ayotamuno. He says patriotism, equity, and justice in production and distribution of resources at all levels of society, beginning from the family, is a sure antidote to hate speech. Do you agree?
Exactly.
Yeah. Do we have hate speech in families?
Yes.
Yes, you might have, because maybe the father favors one child more than the other, and more than the others. It happened to Joseph in the Bible.
In the Bible, okay.
It happened to Joseph in the Bible, and his brothers took him to put him in the pit and throw him out. So it happens in families too.
Okay. So are we saying that to curb this, we need to check it even from the family background?
Yes, the family have to actually look at the family, control the words to speak in the family, because it is from there, it is the foundation, it is the starting point. So the values in the society must institute positive values in the society, the way we speak, our actions. This hate speech could be carried out through our words, symbols, messages, video, control what your children watch, and so on. So the family has a very important role to play.
What comes to my mind now? Sometimes we use certain words, even in our families. Thinking that it's a joke.
Negative words.
Especially people living together in the same compound. And then one person, because of a little conflict between two families, and you hear the mother, of the one family using abusive words, even in the presence of the children.
Teaching them too.
Teaching them.
So
I think we need to start from the family, the foundation. So what is your advice to our users, to our viewers this morning?
My advice to our viewers this morning is that we should maintain positive attitude. We should be patriotic.
Okay.
We should be disciplined and tolerant of one another, patience, and together we'll be able to build a peaceful society.
Okay, what's your advice to our viewers?
Well, human beings have emotions, and sometimes we allow emotions run wild, and because of that, we utter things that we are not supposed to utter. In general, I would say that we should be able to curb our emotions and say no to hate speech.
Okay.
Because it is very negative.
Okay, so we have more comments coming in. We have from Mr. Young Ayotamuno. He says, opening up the space for citizens' access, conversation, and engagement with their leaders will check hate speech. Yeah, because if they don't have, you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's part of the reason why the government brought out this freedom of information bill.
Yes.
If you want any information, you can go to any office and get the information following the due process. And there's like our elected representatives, they're supposed to have a village roundtable, like a conference, talking with your constituents, knowing their problems. We'll advise the representatives in the elected positions to have dialogues with their people so that they know their needs, so that they can carry those needs up to the policymakers, and the policymakers can make things that will bring down the tension in each of the societies.
Okay, so what would you say about that?
This is exactly, it's really correct. The Freedom of Information Act gives you access to information, and when you have access to information, the possibility or chances of getting a fake news or fake information will be reduced. And so access to information guarantees you access to quality and reliable and legal information that will enable you to
make right decisions
make right decisions.
Okay, so what's your advice to our leaders out there, elected representatives? Because the people want to feel that they belong to governance. They want to participate. You know, we encourage people as one of our mandates to actively participate in governance. And the people want to be heard. The people want to give their own, suggestions. So what do you think our elected representatives should do?
Yeah, government is participatory.
Yes.
Everyone should be involved. All hands must be on deck. Just like the National Education Agency mandates.
Okay.
They are there to inform, they are there to mobilize people to participate and promote peace and harmony in society. And so government should at all times create an atmosphere, conducive environment where people can make their inputs to governance, can say their needs, and it is being addressed promptly by citizens' engagement. Citizens to be engaged.
So I have one from Irene. She says social media is very educative and helpful. So let's not abuse social media. And also from Mr. Charles Opara is saying NOA, keep doing the good work. So do we have any last word for the people?
Yes. The advice I'll give is we should generally say no to hate speech because it is derogatory to the human person himself. And if you have any issues to discuss, you employ dialogue. You use dialogue because even in civilized times, that is what they do. They come to the round table, get an arbiter. If you have any grounds, use dialogue instead of engaging hateful words or speaking. And please, let us encourage government in its fight against hate speech. Recently, we hear the National Assembly is getting into it, but we hope that we'll come up with something that will be beneficial to the whole country, to every citizen in general.
Okay. Do you have any last word for our viewers?
Yeah. Hate speech should be discouraged.
Okay.
It's destructive. It's offensive. It deters the development of a country. And so we must, as the citizens of this country, strive at all times to speak positive words, good words, words that build and not words that destroy. Negative words create negative impacts on our emotions and our well-being, and so should be avoided.
So thank you, Mr. Samson Ogubo. He is the Community Orientation and Mobilization Officer in charge of Ogubolo local government area. Thank you, Mrs. Margaret Banigo. Do not be a bad social media user. Use social media responsibly. Your posts must not incite violence. Do not be the reason why people will pick up arms to fight against each other. Thank you for streaming live with us this morning. Keep a date with us next week, same time, same place on our Facebook channel. Remember, you can stream live with us when you go to our Facebook channel, search for NOA River State, click on the like button, and you are all done. You can catch up on our previous episodes by going to our YouTube channel, NOA Rivers State, and click on the subscribe button. Thank you again for streaming live with us today. Keep a date, same time, same platform. God bless you, and God bless Nigeria.